Always great catching up with my next guest, Gerald Meerschaert, who's going to be back in action taking on Andre Petroski, UFC 292, August 19th. We're less than a month away. Gerald, how are you, man?
I'm feeling great, James. How you been?
Doing awesome. Cool to see him matched up with Petroski. I don't know if you got like some rivalry going with Martinez BJJ. You fought Piper technically twice, right? You had the grappling match. Now you're fighting his teammate. How did this all come together?
Petroski had actually called me out way before, and it was a fight that we were both interested in. I said I was down, but it just, for whatever reason, we kept getting matched up with other guys, and they were like just far enough apart and close enough that one would be fighting right before or after the other, and it just by the time one of us fought, the other guy already had an opponent, so it just never really came through. So, but now finally we got the chance to do it.
Yeah, and it's all worked out well. An opponent that I know you've been linked to in the past, Abus Magomedov, ended up fighting Sean Strickland. I was just curious, two things on that. Number one, what do you make of the UFC saying, oh, no one wanted to fight him? And I remember you and I doing an interview saying like, hey, I'm good to fight him. And number two, what did you think of him, gassing out in the second round like that against Strickland?
It was very poor decision making on his part for that fight in particular because, you're in a 5-round fight. It's good to have confidence in your finishing ability, but if you fight a guy like Strickland, he hasn't really been finished that much, and he's known for having great cardio and going, well into the later rounds. So why you would come out there guns blazing like that and think you're going to put him away, I don't know. Unless you're like a Pahea or someone that can like touch anybody and put him to sleep, that's just kind of a bad game plan. And the whole like nobody wanted to fight him thing, I was supposed to fight him in February, and like again, I'm not blaming him. I'm not saying that he's avoiding me, but all I know is that I came down before I had moved down to Florida to Kill Cliff. I came down for a camp. It was like right around the holidays, so I could get like a minimum like 6-week camp in. And pretty much within like a week of me being down here, like, oh well, he can't get in for February. He's having visa issues to get into the States. So could you fight him in London? And I moved everything I had around. I had, Airbnb booked. I had a rental car. I had to like call all these people and rearrange all this training because, otherwise I'd be paying to stay down there for an extra few months for a fight that like you already kind of messed around with me once. I don't know if it's going to happen again. And then sure enough, they're like, oh, well, later on, they're like, do you want to fight in London? Sure. I had to renew my passport, send that in to get it renewed. And they're like, oh, by the way, he can't get into London either. So do you want to still fight on the February card against somebody else? And I'm like, I can't, it's a little late for that now because at first it was kind of short notice at that point. It had already like moved everything around. It's like, no, I can't do that. And that's how the Piper fight came about. And I had to wait a lot longer than normal because, I don't know if it was Abus personally or his management. Somebody couldn't get his stuff together. And that was like very frustrating because then he even got matched up for somebody in like before the London card in the US. And I was like, I thought he couldn't get into the country. Like, what are we doing here? So I don't know this for sure, right? Because all I know is they kept messing me around for this dude. And then like it seemed like they're kind of trying to cherry pick a fight for him. And, they put him against a tough guy and found out that maybe that was too much too soon.
Yeah. I just wanted to clarify that because that was one of the things I kept hearing because I said it was just bad matchmaking. It's like, how does this guy with one fight who fought a 1-3 opponent get to fight Sean Strickland? I know Strickland had a few losses, but like what happened to building up your resume and getting opponents based off that? I thought that was a little bit weird. But anyways, enough about him. Quickly, you mentioned the fight for fight, the MMA version that is it just that you got caught? What do you sort of take away from that performance?
For which fight?
The actual MMA fight you had with Joe Pfeiffer. I have to clarify that because you also grappled him.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry. I mean, there was a lot of stuff leading up to it that no fault of anybody's, but like I happened to have something that was preventing me from training, and like that never helps. I still made weight. I signed a contract. I showed up to fight. No matter what else happened, I still felt I could beat Joe Pfeiffer that night. But hindsight's 2020. Could circumstances been better? Absolutely. But guys have, even myself, I've won under worse circumstances. So that's no excuse, but it certainly was not optimal. And it's camp is going way better this time.
Let's talk about Petroski, his teammate. Obviously some great jiu-jitsu there. Stylistically, how are you looking at this fight? Obviously, I mentioned it there. He's got good jiu-jitsu. He's got, good stand-up as well. Pretty well-rounded guy.
Yeah. No, I think honestly, especially I've been, having to watch film and kind of scout him. I think his stand up is a little slept on. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but for what he's doing, it is pretty effective. He stance switches a lot more than a lot of wrestlers because generally speaking, they either just say, well, I'm either going to learn how to fight out of the stance I shoot from, or I'm going to stand up in one stance and then I'll just switch when I need to shoot. But he actually blends his stance switching in pretty well to his shots and likes to shoot from southpaw, but he's blended in a couple strikes from southpaw that he's pretty decent with, especially for a guy that you wouldn't expect it from. So, definitely not bad on the feet. Like you said, he's more of a grappler. Definitely more of a top control guy. Where I'd be more of in the kind of gunslinger category as far as like I don't mind rolling around and being on bottom and looking for submissions. So like for sure, I'd be really really surprised if he didn't shoot. But I think a lot of this fight is going to take place on the feet because I'm a little bit longer and I'm just not going to let him take me down. And I think he'll respect my guard enough and, my ground game in general that he's going to be a little bit tentative.
Mhm.
So I could be wrong, but that's kind of how I see it going. And I think, those make for exciting fights because we'll have to stay on the feet and, figure out who's the toughest.
His last loss was actually against a guy that I know does train a little bit at Kill Cliff as well. Someone I actually talked to a couple of days ago, Aaron Jeffrey. I don't know if you trained with him at all or picked his brain at all about the matchup. I know it was a couple of years ago, but still, at least there's a common opponent there, right?
Yeah, no, a little bit for sure. And we both have fights around a similar time. So when he was down here at Kill Cliff for kind of like the first part of his camp, we trained together. Talked about different things, and obviously, like you said, it's a couple of years ago, so things change. But definitely good to have insight from somebody who's been in there with him.
And this is usually the case with most of the opponents you fight, but will experience play into this? I mean, Petroski's only got 10 fights. You've got a boatload. My math's not good. Like is that will that be a factor here? My math's not good. That's why I'm doing this. So,
no, obviously, if experience was like the biggest factor, I'd be undefeated in my
true.
last
Yeah. I guess that's true.
20 or whatever. But
yeah,
is it going to help? I'm sure it'll help. So it all comes down to if I have the correct preparation and I'm in good enough condition because that's the thing. Guys don't necessarily have bad fight IQ as much as people think they do, more so that they get tired and it's hard to think clearly when you're tired, or that you're not doing the right thing, but you're so tired that you're like, well, I'm going to try this anyway and just see if it works. So if I'm in good enough condition that I can keep my head on straight, and I've weathered bad storms before, and that's the thing that everybody kind of knows is like I can be in bad spots and I can be on the wrong side of a fight and still come back and find a way to win. So I'm sure that'll help me, but hopefully I don't have to dive too deep into that back pocket to get the W.
Now you sort of mentioned there with your wording that like you moved to Florida. You're just doing your camps there, or have you actually moved from Wisconsin to Florida?
I moved. No more snow for me. I'm in Florida full time. Yeah.
When did you make that decision?
It was during the last camp. Some of my family came down. My wife came down with me, and saw the area, came to the gym, kind of saw the atmosphere, and she was like, "Yeah, like I said, I don't have a super short amount of time. Like I would say, like this is the last part of my career, but I only say that because as you mentioned, I got one metric shit ton of fights." So anything I have left in the UFC is going to be less than what I had before. Or if I get 30 fights in the UFC, that'd be awesome. That'd be nuts. But, I probably got I feel like 4 or 5 years for sure. Beyond that, I don't know. So that's not a short amount of time, but like that last part, I want to make count. I want to make the best of it. And I feel like being down here full time is the way to do that. So that's why.
Okay, good for you, man. No, that's great. And like you said, the weather's better. It threw me off with the Wisconsin sign in the background. That's why I was like, I wasn't sure. So
yeah, a little piece of home.
Just double checking. We talked a bit about camp there. Who were some of the main training partners, or who are some? You still got a bit of camp left, but who are you mainly working with?
Still cast of familiar characters. I've had one guy I've had coming down here, my buddy JP St. Louis.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, he trains he lives in Orlando. He trains at
Fusion. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I remember that.
Right.
Yeah.
But I lived with that kid for a long time. We trained at Root Sport together. He's coming down now to he's a little more of a similar build to Petroski to give me kind of that look, especially for stand up. And hey, if anybody can find him a fight at 85 or 75 or 70 or whatever. Nobody wants to fight him. I don't understand it.
Mhm.
So he needs to get a fight. But otherwise, I've been training a lot with our guy Foz down here, Fozzy, and Logan Storley's been giving, like, today. Me and him
Nice.
just went at it for 5 rounds. Another really great look for someone like Petroski. And then all the same familiar guys that are around my way to kill Cliff. But those are the main people that I've been kind of hovering around to kind of get that same body type and fighting style.
What about your corner for this fight? Who will be in the cage with you?
For sure, Jason Strout. He's always a good voice to have in the corner. Very speaks very plain and honest. Like, hey, maybe don't get hit so much. Hit him a little bit more with the left or right. So I like that in the corner. I think I might actually have JP with me, and other than that, we'll see as the fight gets closer. We figure out who's all going where, because we got a lot of fight to kill Cliff kind of right in a row here.
Now, when I talked to Petroski, very, polite in the interview, but he says he wants to submit you to kind of make a statement of who jiu-jitsu's better. He's never been submitted in his career. Is that something you're looking to do? I mean, that's typically how you win a lot of your fights.
Honestly, I'm not looking for the submit. That's it. I shouldn't say I don't have any animosity towards him. I don't really have a reason to have it, but like for some reason, I just want to beat him up. Like
Okay.
I just want to hurt him. Like I don't want him to like suffer some crazy thing, but I want to beat him up and make it very apparent to everybody that I'm better. So he can go ahead and look for that submission. I'm going to try and punch him in the face as many times as I can. You know what I mean? And will it get into a grappling exchange? There's a pretty good chance it will, but I'm still going to try and elbow him and punch him from every angle I can. So I already got the middleweight record. Would I like to build on it? Sure, but I really just want to beat him up.
How many more fights do you have left on your contract? Do you know? You have a couple, don't you, or no?
Yeah. Well, now I'm on a 6-fight contract, so I think.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I think this is actually the second one. So I got a.
Oh, you got a few. Okay, good,
Yeah.
good. Oh, that's good. Yeah, I didn't realize you got 6 fights. Normally they just do 4, so that's good. Their UFC's investing in you. What do you make of this whole? I saw Ben Askren texting Dana White. Askren's a good buddy of yours. They want to do this rematch. Do you think it happens? I mean, Ben looks in great shape. I saw some photos of him recently.
Dude, I literally saw him yesterday, and I was like, why did you decide to exercise and like look like a normal human being after you? But keep in mind though, he had there was like a lot of injuries and stuff like that. He had major hip problems, so there was a lot of you can't work out or do anything. It's easy to balloon up and come back down. But he like doesn't have like dessert at all anymore. But the guy looks phenomenal. Like his arms look big. He's got veins popping out of his neck. And I was like, look at this dude. Like, he's out here lifting and stuff. Like, it's crazy. So I don't know if it actually happens. I don't really see an upside for Masvidal. You know what I mean? Like, if you look at it objectively, like, how would he do better? You know what I'm saying?
It's hard to top the first, especially with what happened, like the knee and everything. Like, Askren's not going to shoot the takedown in the first 5 seconds. You know what I mean?
Right. And not only that, but like you look at his fights after that, it's like, do you really think even if he wins that it's going to even look good? You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
He's going to get taken down. He's going to get, even if he somehow wins, it's going to be like he's getting drowned and like maybe he lands a couple flashy things on the feet, but he's going to get rode on for the majority of the fight. So it'd be cool to see it, I guess, but like I just don't know what reason he would have to take that fight.
Last question. How's fatherhood these days? How's everything going with that? You moved the family. I guess it's nice you don't have to be away from them anymore, right?
Yeah, no, that's been great. And that's the thing. It was a big part of the decision is if I did 3 camps a year, when I'd like to fight, 3-4 times a year if I'm healthy, but just doing that minimum being away, I'm away half the year. And my son, he just turned 2 in May. So it's like some of the more formative years of his life. So if I'm gone half the time, you know what I mean? I'm kind of an absentee father. And, there's plenty of people that have jobs that they don't have that choice. And, they got to do what they have to do to provide for their family. And, I got nothing but respect for that. But I have the ability and the option to keep them with me. And if I can do that, I think, just overall as a family unit and for my own, mental, physical, spiritual health, I think it's best to stay together.
No, I completely agree. My youngest is turning 2 as well. He's turning 2 in September, so it's a good age right now. They're starting to my guy's starting to develop like his personality a bit, which is really cool.
Yeah,
So,
it's a lot of fun.
It's fun. He's a lot different. Like he's more like my wife, and my oldest is like me. So yeah, we kind of my youngest and I actually get along better, I think, than my oldest because him and I are too similar. I think that's part of the problem. So
Yeah,
both kind of hot headed that way. That's great. Hey Gerald, thanks for doing this, man. Really appreciate it. It's UFC 292, August 19th in Boston. If there's anyone you want to thank, any sponsors, any social media you want to mention before we get out of here, I'll give you the last word.
Appreciate it. Hey, shout out to my Sucker Punch, my manager, all the people that work for Sucker Punch. You guys are great. Shout out to Rattlesnake Meat Company. If you guys want fresh beef, 21-day age beef straight from a ranch in the USA, go to Rattlesnake. I think it's like rattlesnake.com. You get hooked up there. And Combat Corner for always giving me my gear. And honestly, I thought about this. I've seen some other guys say it. I'm going to give Venom a shout out because they're one of the few sponsors that, like, you can argue about how much the fighters deserve about sponsors that the UFC has, but they actually cut me a check. So, shout out to them.